In East London during the wild 60s, the Kray twins are the city's most feared gangsters ruling the streets like kings. Ronnie is unpredictable and violent, while Reggie is known for his fists and charm. One morning, Reggie steps out to bring tea to the plainclothes officers shadowing him. With a smug grin, he mocks Nipper for just sitting there instead of chasing actual criminals. When Reggie heads to his car, he's surprised to see Ali behind the wheel instead of Frank. Ali explains that Frank never showed up, so Reggie immediately decides to pay him a visit and find out what's going on. On the way to Frank's place, Reggie chats with the friendly neighbors who genuinely appreciate how much he cares. Meanwhile, the cops stay hot on his trail. Nipper grows frustrated. Why are these people so happy to talk to a gangster but won't even look at a policeman? At the apartment, Reggie meets Frank's sister, Frances. He starts flirting right away until her mother storms in and orders her back inside. Moments later, Frank finally appears, looking flustered, and gets to work. During the drive, Reggie can't stop asking questions about Frances. He's clearly interested. Later, the car pulls into an alleyway. Reggie and Ali sneak off quietly, leaving Nipper to slam the brakes and scramble to follow them. But no matter how fast he moves, Nipper loses track of them again. The man is fuming. After giving the cop the slip, Reggie and Ali head over to the mental hospital to see Ron. Ron had been locked up for 3 years after a brutal assault and was later declared insane. When they sit down, Ron brags about using mind control to trick people into handing over their food. Reggie and Ali act amazed, but it's obvious they're just humoring him. Reggie wants his brother out badly. So he sends one of his men to deliver a terrifying message to the psychiatrist in charge of Ron's case. The doctor, shaken to his core just by hearing Reggie's name, lies to the parole board, claiming Ron is mentally fit to leave. After signing the papers, the doctor pulls Reggie aside and whispers a serious warning. Ron is extremely dangerous and must take his medicine twice a day to keep him from spiraling. Not long after, Frances gets dressed up for a date with Reggie, ignoring her mother's protests. Reggie brings her to his glamorous club, proudly explaining that he mixes VIP celebrities with shady criminals because that's what the crowd loves: danger and fame in one place. Their date is cut short when Reggie's men urgently pull in the side. It turns out Jack's been skimming money from the illegal trade. But Reggie keeps cool at first. He tells Jack he'll let it slide if he returns the money by tomorrow and swears to behave. Jack thinks he's safe, until Reggie suddenly smacks him and growls a chilling warning: one wrong move and he won't get another chance. Reggie returns to Frances and tries to charm her again. She asks if he really likes being a gangster. He shakes his head and says he's just a club owner, nothing more. Then he delivers a comical rant about how messed up the world is, and Frances laughs, then kisses him. A few weeks later, Reggie takes Frances deep into the woods to introduce her to Ron, who's now living in a rundown RV. As they arrive, a young man is seen leaving. Ron casually explains that he likes men, then shares way too much about what goes on behind closed doors. Frances is clearly uncomfortable, but Ron doesn't stop there. He proudly declares that he and Reggie are going to take over the entire city. The Kray twins have a dangerous feud brewing with the brutal Richardson Gang from South London. Their leaders, Charlie and Eddie Richardson, are infamous for their cruelty. They hang victims upside down and torture them in gruesome ways until they get what they want. So when they catch one of Reggie's men operating across the river on their turf, they lose it and send a car speeding toward Reggie in a violent warning. Reggie isn't about to let that slide. In return, he sends a much bigger car smashing straight into the restaurant where the Richardsons are having lunch. Boom. Shaken and tired of the war, the Richardsons send their man George to propose a truce. But things go sideways fast. George shows up at the Krays' place, runs his mouth, and ends up insulting Ron. Bad move. Ron pulls out his gun, ready to go wild, and Reggie has to kick George out before things get bloody. An hour later, the Krays head to a pub for the supposed peace talk, only to realize it's a setup. They're completely surrounded by members of the Richardson Gang. Tension fills the room, and Ron, with both hands in his pockets, starts ranting like a madman, acting like he's hiding guns. He dares them to shoot. His wild stare and fearless energy freak the gang out so much they actually back off and let him walk away. Meanwhile, Reggie calmly pours himself a glass of beer ice cold. As soon as Ron's gone, Reggie starts hurling insults at the gang and flashes his brass knuckles with a smirk. Just then, Ron bursts back in holding 2 hammers and smashes one thug across the back. Chaos explodes into a full-on brawl. Even though the Richardsons have the numbers, the Krays fight like animals, raw and relentless. Ron even bites a man's face in the madness. The twins dominate the entire gang without holding back. While Ron keeps pounding the unconscious men, Reggie sips his beer like nothing just happened. Later, during the World Cup final, the police finally catch a break. They find Charlie Richardson hiding out and immediately arrest him. He gets slapped with 25 years for fraud, extortion, and assault. With the Richardsons out of the picture, no one stands in the Krays' way anymore. They're free to take over London. They bring in a slick lawyer named Leslie to help cover up their dirty dealings with legitimate businesses. He uses legal tricks and polished threats to pressure the casino owner into selling to the twins. Reggie sees Leslie as sharp and resourceful, definitely someone worth keeping around. But Ron can't stand him. He thinks Leslie's business talk and sneaky deals make him a fake gangster. Ron doesn't trust smooth talkers. He believes real gangsters handle problems with fists, not contracts. Plus, Ron hates that Leslie keeps saying "we" like he's actually part of their crew. One day, Leslie comes with big news. The American Mafia wants to team up. Ron doesn't like the idea, but Reggie tells Leslie to arrange the meeting. When the Americans arrive, tension fills the air. Reggie isn't impressed at first. Until they open 2 suitcases, one stuffed with cash, the other with bearer bonds. The Americans propose a partnership with a 60/40 profit split in their favor. But Reggie stands firm and demands 50/50. They accept and everyone raises a glass to seal the deal. Ron, as usual, blurts out something awkward about his private life. But the Americans just laugh and call him brave for being so open. It's shocking, but it works. Business booms. The casino becomes the perfect front for Reggie's criminal empire. Just like his pub, it's packed with celebrities and crooks, all rubbing elbows in a place that screams danger and glamour. Reggie keeps wooing Francis, while Ron's behavior gets stranger by the day. He even brings a donkey into the casino. The pills keep him stable, but the madness is still bubbling underneath. As the year winds down, Reggie faces reality. He has to return to prison to finish a sentence that had been hanging over him. The moment he steps through the gates, the guards pounce on him, beating him viciously before dragging him to his cell. Other inmates watch in shock, shouting words of support as he passes, but Reggie is clearly in agony. Once inside his cell, he begs for mercy. A guard eventually brings him some water. And that's when Reggie makes his move. He's been faking weakness. In a flash, he steals the guard's handcuffs, locks him to the cell bars, grabs the baton and smashes him with it while the entire block roars in approval. A few days later, Ron visits Frances and tells her he's seen Reggie, and that Reggie sends his regards but warns her not to go see him. After that, Ron meets with Leslie, pestering him nonstop for money to fund his wild ideas. Since Reggie's been behind bars, Ron has been unraveling more and more. He argues with Leslie every single day. Eventually, Ron loses it and sweeps all of Leslie's papers off the table in a fit of rage. He's fed up with pretending to be a businessman. What he wants is to live like a real gangster, take money when he wants, no questions asked. Worn out and frustrated, Leslie gives in and promises to try something with the bank, but coldly reminds Ron, "I'm not scared of you." Meanwhile, Frances ignores Ron's warning and visits Reggie in prison. But Reggie isn't happy to see her. He didn't want her witnessing him like this. Frances is furious and wants to report the guards for their abuse, but Reggie has to explain how deep the corruption runs. It's not that simple. She begs him to give up the criminal world, but Reggie tells her it's not that easy to walk away. Back at the club, Ron ruins the night by grabbing an instrument and playing it horribly in the middle of a performance. Then he hijacks the microphone, mocking the fancy guests with filthy jokes and bitter insults about their rich lifestyles. The whole place goes dead silent. No one's laughing except his loyal sidekick, Teddy. Leslie watches from the sidelines, visibly stressed, knowing this could have serious consequences. When Reggie finally gets out of prison, he heads straight to Frances. He climbs up to her window like something out of a movie, hands her a ring, and proposes right then and there. Frances agrees, but only on one condition: Reggie must leave the gangster life behind. He swears he will, promising on his honor. Later that night, the couple heads to the club. But Reggie is stunned. It's practically empty. Leslie explains that Ron has scared off the regulars and the place is sinking fast. They're even about to get crushed by the incoming tax bill next week. Reggie snaps and confronts Ryan, yelling at him furiously. Frances steps in to defend Reggie, but Ryan turns on her too, hurling nasty insults her way. That's it. Reggie loses control and slams Ryan onto a table. The two brothers go at it, tearing into each other with fists, glass, anything they can grab. The fight is brutal, raw, and bloody. But Ron's time in prison has made him tough. He eventually overpowers Reggie, leaving him beaten on the floor. Frances, horrified by the violence, storms out in disgust. In a strange, heartbreaking moment, a sobbing Ron kneels beside his brother and hugs him tightly, whispering that sometimes he doesn't feel like himself. The next day, Reggie chases after Frances and convinces her to give him another shot. While all this unfolds, Nipper switches gears. He starts tailing Ron instead. He takes countless photos, hoping to catch something big. But Ron's already playing a smarter game. He cozies up to powerful members of Parliament, inviting them to parties at his flat parties where young men are hired to entertain the older politicians. The police can't touch him now, not without dragging high-ranking officials into a massive scandal. So the upper brass buries it all, and Ron stays untouchable. Reggie takes Frances to a club in the West End, a swanky place he wants to buy to make himself look like a real businessman again. The current owner agrees to sell him half of it, and Reggie's confident he can buy the other half soon enough. But Ron starts to panic. He thinks Reggie's trying to build a new life without him, so he sends Teddy to mess things up. Teddy storms into the club, smashing up the bar and threatening the owner. It works. The owner backs out of the deal. But he also calls the police. Now both Kray twins are charged with extortion. Frances visits Reggie in jail and makes one thing crystal clear. She won't to marry him unless he is found innocent. That's the line. A few days later, a bombshell photo hits the papers. Ron is pictured with a well-known politician. The government scrambles to make the problem disappear. They need to bury the scandal fast, which means getting the Krays out of jail and clearing their names. With a quiet push from the top, both twins walk free, and Reggie gets to buy the club at a discount later that same night. When Nipper walks into the club to investigate, Reggie mocks him to his face. He points out that Nipper technically works for him now, since the higher-ups are protecting the twins. They even pose for a picture with Nipper and send it to the police chief just to rub it in. The message is clear: back off. The chief takes the hint and tells Nipper to drop the case. Time passes, and Reggie and Frances finally tie the knot, but it's not exactly a fairy tale. Her mother still disapproves, so much so that she wears black to the wedding like it's a funeral. Right before the ceremony, she begs Frances not to go through with it. Frances doesn't listen. Ron notices the mother Ice NT singing during the vows and calls her out in front of the whole crowd. Despite Reggie's promise to go clean, it only takes 2 weeks before he's back in the criminal game. His shady deals keep him out late, and Frances gets fed up with sleeping alone. She starts to realize the truth: Reggie likes being a gangster. Trying to make things work, Frances attempts to connect with Ron and their parents, but it's a disaster. They nitpick everything she does and make her feel like she'll never be good enough. Things get even worse when Nipper starts tailing her. The pressure becomes too much. Frances starts popping pills too many and slowly turns into an addict. Meanwhile, Reggie gets back to his old ways. When Jack messes up again, Reggie doesn't hesitate. He beats him senseless and enjoys it. He buys Frances a new car to try and make up for everything, but when she begs him to spend time with her, he brushes her off. One afternoon at the pub, Leslie sits down with Reggie and tells him to think about the future. Maybe it's time to truly go straight for the family. But Ron overhears and explodes. He smashes a bottle over Leslie's head and starts chucking glasses at everyone as the layers rush to the hospital. Reggie is furious. He confronts Ron and realizes he hasn't been taking his meds. That explains everything. He's spiraling again. Later on, one of the American mobsters pulls Reggie aside. Ron's behavior is getting dangerous. He's seen partying with politicians, saying outrageous things, and acting like a complete maniac. The Americans want Reggie to do something about him before everything blows up, but Reggie refuses. He's not going to betray his brother, not ever. That night, he gets home and walks right past Francis without even saying hello. Meanwhile, George, formerly with the torture gang, is trying to make a comeback. He crosses into Kray territory and attacks the owner of a valuable warehouse, beating him senseless. The next morning, the terrified man runs straight to Ron for help. Ron agrees after ranting about how useless people are, but he wants to be paid. That night, Ron strolls into a pub, walks up to George, and shoots him in the head right there, in front of everyone. Back at home, Reggie wants to scream at Ron for the cold-blooded murder, but he can't risk their mother overhearing. Instead, he keeps his voice low and orders Teddy to get rid of Ron's clothes and the murder weapon. Then he pulls Ali aside and tells him to track down every witness who might talk to the cops. Before leaving, he sets the medicine bottle down and reminds Ron to take it, but Ron just stares, lost in his own world. The next day, Francis pleads with Reggie. She wants him to turn Ron in, but Reggie refuses. What breaks him more is realizing that Francis is addicted to the pills. Meanwhile, at Scotland Yard, Nipper finally gets the green light to launch a full investigation into the Krays, using George's murder as the perfect excuse. Ron is dragged into a police lineup, but not a single witness points him out. They're too terrified to speak. Francis grows more miserable by the day. Gang members now hang around the house like it's their personal clubhouse. People in the neighborhood avoid her completely. When she confronts Reggie about it, he admits he threatened the witnesses just to keep everything quiet. One rainy afternoon, Francis rushes outside to close her car windows but struggles with the door. Reggie doesn't help. Instead, he mocks her, saying she wouldn't even have the car if it weren't for his dirty money. He starts shaking the car, calling her names and humiliating her. She slaps him. Furious, Reggie storms inside after her and unleashes his rage. He throws her around, assaults her, then leaves her bruised and broken. The next day, Frances finally walks away for good. As she's leaving with her suitcase, Ron spots her. He helps carry her bags and chats with her like nothing happened. He's happy to see her leave, but he's still disturbed by what Reggie did. "That's not how Mom and Dad raised us," he says. Frances kisses his cheek. Ron tells her he's always liked her. A few weeks later, Reggie shows up at Frances's family home, begging for another chance. Frank tries to keep him out, but Frances agrees to talk. Reggie swears he's changed. He pleads, he cries. But Frances doesn't buy it. She shuts the door on him and walks away. After that, the pain gets too heavy. Frances realizes she never escaped this nightmare. She swallows a fatal dose of pills. Frank finds her lifeless and calls Reggie. Reggie shows up to say goodbye and gently slips the wedding ring back on her finger. At the funeral, Frances's mother glares at him and blames him for everything. Not long after, Ron hires Jack to kill Leslie. That night, Jack shows up at Leslie's house, but when Leslie opens the door, Jack freezes. The hesitation gives Leslie just enough time to fight back. A scuffle breaks out, the gun goes off, and Leslie is shot in the leg. Jack flees as Leslie fires at his car, but it's too late. Jack's gone. At the hospital, Nipper visits Leslie and makes him a promise: full protection for his family if he talks. Leslie agrees and hands over damning documents. Not only that, every witness from George's murder has been put under protection too. They're finally ready to testify. That night, Ron throws a party like nothing's wrong. Reggie shows up, burning with fury. When Jack walks in, Reggie immediately lashes out, screaming that Jack ruined everything. Jack panics and runs to Ron for help, but Ron stands there in silence. No rescue this time. Then Jack crosses the line. He mocks Reggie over Frances's death. That's it. Reggie pulls out a gun and tries to shoot him point blank. Click. No bullets. Jack turns to flee, but Reggie grabs a knife and goes wild. He stabs Jack over and over again right in front of the guests. Blood spills everywhere. The room is silent. Ron finally asks, "Why?" Reggie, covered in blood, breathes heavily. "Because I can't kill my brother," he says, "even if I want to." Then he shoves the bloody knife into Ron's pocket and walks out. Ali rushes after him, furious. He shouts at Reggie, demanding answers. but Reggie punches him in the face and keeps walking. With a room full of witnesses, the police finally have enough to arrest the Kray twins. No more political favors. No more immunity. This story is based on real events. Reggie Kray spent 33 years behind bars and was released. Just 2 weeks before his death in 2000, he died of cancer at 66. His brother, Ron, was declared insane and sent back to a mental hospital, where he died of a heart attack in 1995 at the age of 61.